Hello, everybody. How are you? Back again with a North Carolina spotlight video, this time on sports, specifically football, and specifically the Carolina Panthers of the National Football League, professional American football team. Now, the team joined the league in 1995 and have been the same ever since. They've never left the city. They've never changed their name. They very consistent part of the city, and also a pretty good team, of which we'll find out more in a minute. But just as a little background, they played their first season in Memorial Stadium in Clemson until they could get the Bank of America Stadium organized, where they now play, and have ever since in uptown Charlotte. In fact, they own their own stadium, which is unusual in the NFL. But that gives them a lot of flexibility. So they can add attractions without, getting clearance or having to negotiate with anybody. They can just do what they want. So, for example, on the outside of the stadium, all around the side, on the outside, they've created that into climbing walls. So, these rock climber types that you've seen them on TV, or maybe you're into it yourself, where they climb the outside of the wall, and that's a sport. Well, what was happening? It was great. People loved it, and you can still do it. But what was happening is that people were climbing the rock wall on the outside of the stadium just to get into the stadium, and then they'd sneak down to better seats, and it kind of became a thing, because people would look next to them and somebody's settling into seats that were previously empty. And then all of a sudden somebody's sitting there for the second half. Interesting. And they're wearing rock climbing shoes, and they have that chalk dust on their hands from climbing the rock wall. Well, people started to complain, so they cracked down. They cracked down on it. And so they have spotters outside on the sidewalk with binoculars that watch people go up the rock wall. Now, if you're caught, they don't arrest you, but they will throw you over the side onto a stack of 4 or 5 Sealy mattresses, and then you'll bounce. Generally, what happens is the people bounce off of those and go flying into the parking lot and land on a Toyota Corolla, setting off the alarm. So, but that's it. It's the rock wall is just one of many other things. They have bowling alleys. They have squash courts. They have tetherball. They have tetherball using the flags at the top of the stadium. If you've ever seen those rows of flags at the top of the stadium, they have attached tetherballs to that, and you can actually stand on top of the stadium and play tetherball. You have to watch out for the rock climbers, because a lot of them coming over the top trying to sneak in, like I mentioned. But if you don't mind standing yourself on a 8-inch wide tippy top edge of a stadium to play tetherball, it's a lot of fun. Sometimes you go for the big swing, though. You try to throw that ball around their head and wrap it in one big motion, and you might go flying off. But again, they've got the spotters, they've got the mattresses. Just be prepared to bounce off a big stack of mattresses and land in the parking lot at a 1967 Lincoln Continental. And trust me, those old cars have heavier metal. They hurt, so be careful. But the training camp, now this is interesting, because you might want to, if you want to see them up close and see the development of the teams, the players that they've acquired, or any of the other reasons that you would want to see them up close that you might not be able to during the season, they have training camp every year at in Spartanburg, South Carolina, at Waffle College. Now, Waffle College is really interesting, because they started in the early to mid 1800s, and was the place that the waffle was invented. And so that's why they have such a big culinary arts department, is that they originated the waffle iron, the waffle breakfast item. And in fact, they have a completely separate wing of the culinary arts school for Belgian waffles, because Belgian waffles are so popular. They had to create a new itinerary new buildings, new kitchens, and in fact having a complete residential green for students that want to major specifically in Belgian waffles. And that's a whole art of itself. But of course, the number of students that are majoring in waffles are the majority of the students. 65% of the students have waffles as a major. Probably half of those are Belgian waffle majors. And then the remaining students are usually in the culinary arts. And you do have a few communications majors. And just like all communications majors, those are really people that are good talkers, but they have no other discernible skills. So they just major in communications. And then they get out and they get a job as a PR flack or as a TV reporter, or sometimes they'll get a job as a tour guide at Disneyland. So, yeah, doing real well. Now, look, the Carolina Panthers, let's go through it. They have, let's see, let's do it this way, 6 division championships. They were only a year old, or you might say 2 years old, when they won the NFC West division championship in 1996. Then they won the division championship in the NFC South in 2003, 2008, 2013, 2014, 2015. Whoa. 3 years in a row, bro. 3 years in a row. So that's a total of 8 playoff appearances. Okay. Pretty good for a relatively young team. There's other teams that have been in the league for much longer, as you can imagine, or as you know, and not doing as well. So, of course, they had that little lull there. They came out banging, and then they kind of went down. So they won the NFC West, right? The second year, right, or however you want to phrase that, but very close to their debut in the league. But then they lost in the NFC Championship game to the Green Bay Packers, okay? And then they had a little lull. Now, I'm a Cleveland Browns fan, to give you some context. We've had a little lull. It's 40 years long. But the Panthers had a little lull till 2003, like I mentioned, where they won the NFC Championship game and went to Super Bowl. Super Bowl. I think that was, 38, maybe 38. And then they lost to the Patriots. Brady, 32-29. Well, don't worry about it. We're coming back. We're coming back to the playoffs, and they did. They did, guys, in 2005 and 2008. But then another lull till 2013. And then boom, 3 NFC South titles in a row. Oh, yeah. But then what happened? Well, 2013, lost to the 49ers. 2014, lost to the Seahawks. 2015, return to the Super Bowl. Lost to the Broncos. But they'll get it, man. They're still, I say they're still a young team. I know you say I'm crazy. They're 30 years old, bro. But that's a young team. So that's, like I said, 8 playoff appearances, 4 NFC Championship games, 2 Super Bowl appearances. But they have, 6 division titles. So they'll get it. They'll be in the they'll win a Super Bowl. You watch. So, blah, blah, blah. Now, if you want to buy the Panthers, I don't believe they're for sale, but if you want to make an offer, they're, at this rating, estimated to be worth $2.5 billion. So, you might have to, I don't know if you're going out today to do chores. You should stay at home. during the quarantine. But if you have to go out for whatever reason, and if you have a valid reason, and you're stopping by the bank to get money, don't forget you're going to need to get $2.5 billion at the bank machine. So I don't know what you drive, but if you drive, like, let's say a Honda Civic or a Honda Fit or a Chevy Neon or what, any of these little cars, you may not have enough room to carry $2.5 billion in bills. All right, because you're going to need probably 9 or 10 suitcases to put all that money in. And again, I don't know if you have the capacity, but I'll leave that up to you. Maybe get some bungee cords. Look, if you're going to Walmart or to Home Depot or to the hardware store, you may want to get some bungee cords and just bungee cord the suitcases to the roof. It might be an easier way to do it. Or just duct tape them down. I mean, who cares? So, how did this all begin? Well, Jerry Richardson was really the impetus. He was one of the original owners and a founder, and there's always at least one guy or girl that says, "Hey, we need a team, man," and they go through work to make it happen. Now, you think it's easy. It's not easy. NFL doesn't hand out franchises like hotcakes, you know. They're not just handing them out to everybody at the wedding. You know, this is not a party favor. This is a major business enterprise. And so he did a lot of the work, laid all the groundwork, did all the politicking, got the money together, you know, all of that. And they were well rewarded for their efforts because, like I said, in the first 2 years, they had a very good result, 7-9 in their very first year. All right, and then the second year, 12-4. Well, of course, winning the NFC West, as I mentioned. But then they lost to the Packers. And, of course, that might have been beginner's luck because they then went through a little lull and came back. So how did this all happen? Well, like I said, he bid for the franchise back in 1987. And they started play in 1995. See what I mean? It takes time, bro. It takes time. Richardson was an NFL player himself. He played for the Colts back in 1959. And then he got his bonus. He got some bonus money. What did he do? He founded Hardee's restaurants. Do they have Hardee's in your area? I don't know. Hardee's is kind of like a Burger King, and there you go. He built a company, built a wealthy, built an empire, and became wealthy. And he then wanted to. They were looking at different places to build a stadium. But they thought uptown Charlotte, man, that's where all the people go. That's where all the hip people go. That's where all the restaurants are. That's where all the people go to work. Let's put it right down there. We'll build the city. We'll get the tourism going. We'll get people coming into town. We're going to make more money, and we're going to build more Hardee's and sell more hamburgers. It's an upward spiral. So to get the spark in the area, right? Because this is a big basketball area. So you got to, even though they're football fans, they are, but you got to get that spark, that awareness. So they had some preseason games in the late 80s, early 90s, like in the Carter Finley Stadium. They had a few games. They went to Williams-Brice Stadium in Columbia. They had a game at Chapel Hill at Kenan Memorial Stadium. You know, these are real NFL matchups, right? Just to get that excitement going. They're what do you call them? Blah, blah, blah. Let's give you an example. Yeah. So in other words, they weren't Carolina Panthers quite yet. So what they were doing was having games between existing teams in those stadiums in the area, just to get the excitement for football. so that when the Panthers debuted, people were panting. People were standing outside the stadium. People were standing outside the ticket booths and saying, Panthers, 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 Panthers. And they started to hyperventilate. And then they would pass out in line. Well, do you think that the people would wake them up, would revive them, would call the ambulance, would get them to revive so they could stand up and rejoin the line? No. They would just step over them. That's how much excitement there was for tickets. When they finally opened the ticket booth for the first few games, so many people wanted tickets. And they were saying, Panthers, Panthers, and then they'd pass out. They called it the Panthers pass out. And what did the other fans do? All they did was drag them to the side and threw a bag of ice on their head so that they would ultimately come to. But they would just step over their space. Sorry, bro. Sorry you passed out, you know. So it wasn't that they didn't give them any care, but it wasn't a lot. Just a bag of ice on the head. And that was pretty common in those days. But, you know, it was warranted because they had sparked the excitement at these different stadiums, as I mentioned, from 89 to 91. And existing NFL teams, of course. So then they were approved and became the 29th member of the National Football League. Can you imagine how exciting that would be to get your NFL team finally in a cool city like Charlotte, fast-growing city, which I think from in the early 2000s, meaning let's say 2000 to 2010, that it was, I think, the fastest growing city in the United States. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, at least for many of those years it was. Fastest growing city in terms of population. On a percentage basis, man, not in terms of total people. Are you kidding? I'm just talking about as a percentage of the population. Do you mean that they have more population than New York City? No, that's not what I said. Blah, 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 blah. So the NFC West was originally 5 teams. The other, they had 2 southeastern teams there, the New Orleans Saints and the Atlanta Falcons. And we're going to, in another video, we're going to talk about the Hornets from the NBA, and New Orleans comes into play in that story. But, yeah, it's very interesting. The very first coach was Dom Capers. He used to be the defensive coordinator for the Steelers back then. So pretty good. The best performance from a first-year expansion team ever. Huh? How about that? Then everybody's like, wow, that was pretty good. This is going to be great. Of course, we don't know how they're going to do in their second year. Maybe they were lucky. No, yeah. Well, 12-4. And then the NFC West division. Can you imagine the excitement in Carolina in their second year? They win the NFC West. I mean, you think it's fun to live there now? People love living there now. Well, back then they would get so excited. They would drive around in convertibles. People were going into local car dealerships to buy convertibles specifically for celebrating the first 2 years of the Panthers. And they would drive around, because then you could put the top down, you could crank the tunes, and you could sing songs about the Panthers. They would change the lyrics. You know that song, I love rock and roll. They'd play that song, they'd put the top down, and the top of their lungs, they'd drive around Charlotte, downtown, uptown, all around the town, going, I love Panther ball. Boom, 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 boom. I love Panther ball. Boom, 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 boom. Charlotte Panthers, Charlotte Panthers, Charlotte Panthers. Right? I mean, it was, and it got to the point where the cops would pull them over, and typically people turn down the radio once they get pulled over by the cops. They would turn it up. They would turn it up. And the cop would come up to the car and he's like, sir, can I have your license and registration, please? And they wouldn't even acknowledge. They would just keep singing. What would happen? Would they get arrested? Will they get dragged away? Did they go to prison? Did they spend the rest of their life in jail? No. Many, if not most of the times, the cops would start singing along with the fans. Guys, I mean, it was crazy. It was a crazy time. Now, unfortunately, they didn't, they had a little lull after that, but still, talk about an exciting debut of a team. And, wow, I'm excited about it. I'm excited about it now. So, what happened? Well, by 98, they slipped down to a 4-12 record. And then Capers got whacked. But as they say in the National Football League, if you're going to be a head coach, if you want to be a head coach, you have to accept that it's not if you'll get fired, it's when you will get fired. It's part of the gig. So then George Seifert, famous coach from San Francisco, he stepped in. He took them to 8-8. Then they went to 7-9. And then in 2001, ouch, 1-15. Whoo. And those other records, 8-8 in 99 and 7-9 in 2000, that's not 12-4, but still for a young team, it's not bad. Okay, but 1-15, ouch. That's when, they start looking at the coach's office and going, all right, let me think about this. Let's see. So how bad was 1-15? They won the first game, but then they lost the next 15. So how bad was that? Well, it tied the record in the league for the most losses in a single year. And it broke a record for the most consecutive losses in a single season. And that record was formerly held by the Buccaneers of 1976. However, always the trooper, the 2008 Detroit Lions, broke both those records. So as I mentioned, when you go 1-15, bad things happen. And of course, the Panthers fired Seifert, as you could have predicted. All right, well, now things, that happens. You can't worry about it. You just got to embrace failure. You got to just go out there taking big bites out of life. And when you stumble and fall, well, of course, take it, man. Take the hit. Take the hit with cheer. Now, this is something that I've had to learn. I usually take the hit with revenge. Don't worry about revenge. Revenge will just slow you down. What you want is speed. Okay? You want to make your life frictionless, meaning get as much accomplished as possible in the shortest amount of time. Revenge will just slow you down. It's you say, I'm going to get them back. Well, okay. All right, revenge boy or girl. Come on. What you should be doing is focus on your own goals and going after them hard. And so that's what the Panthers did. And of course, the NFL expanded to 32 teams in 2002. So that's why when I said they won in both the NFC West and NFC South, the Panthers moved to that new NFC South division. That's why they have that division title in both those divisions. Brand new. We created that for you, man. Just come look at, we built it for you. Look at, just move right in. Move right into the new division. Make yourself at home. So, blah, 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 shamalama ding dong. Like I said, they went 11-5 in 2003, won the NFC South, went to the Super Bowl, lost to the Patriots. One sports writer called it the greatest Super Bowl of all time. And it was a pretty good game. So that's Peter King saying that. I kind of agree. I don't know if the greatest, but it was a pretty good game. And it still has a lot of viewership to this day. And a lot of people can say, a lot of people do call that one of the top Super Bowls. I don't know about the greatest Super Bowl of all time. Come on, man. I mean, I've dated some attractive women, but wow, I don't know about the greatest of all. So then in 2004, they went 1-7. Sound familiar, Brownies? Brown fans? But then they came back to win 6 of the last 7 games. All right. Then blah blah blah, shamalama ding dong. Let's see, NFL's first playoff shutout against a home team since 1980 when they beat the Giants 23-0. Okay, in 2005. All right, and then they were beat 34-14 by the Seahawks. All right. And then in 2006, they were kind of looked at to win the division, but wow, you know what happens? You know what happens when they say you're going to do well. Remember when they said the Browns were going to do so well? Not last year, but the year before. Well, we know how that went. So they finished 8-8 in 2006, 7-9 in 2007. Okay, and 2008. A very good performance, 12-4. First round bye, and then they were booted out of the playoffs by the Arizona Cardinals, who went on to win the NFC Championship. And let's see, that was 2008. The next year, 2009. Ooh, 8-8 overall. And then the quarterback that was leading the team during that time period, Jake Delhomme, had some injuries, and then he had to bow out. He had to bow out in the 2009 season because he broke a finger. He broke a finger. Kind of hard to throw. That was in his throwing hand. It's kind of hard to throw the ball when your finger's hanging down. One of the fingers is hanging down. So they were 4-7 at that point. He had to bow out, and then Matt Moore took over. He won 4 games, lost 1 for a 8-8 record that year. So they got rid of Delhomme and his broken finger. I'm not even saying the name right. In 2010, they went 2-14. That was the worst record in the league that year. Now think about it. You come out of the gate, all right, as a new team, and you kick butt, and then you go through this lull, and then you get worse. You know what I mean? You come back, and you do pretty good in 2003, 2008, and then in 2010, the worst record in the league. This team is kind of looks like those when you record a vocal track and have those spikes going up and down. That's what it looks like, man. They just flipping back and forth, but still, they do go up. I mean, there's some teams that just go down. They go. At least the Panthers go back up. But anyway, league worst record in 2010. And, wow. So then they hired Ron Rivera. Okay, he took over for John Fox. And then what did he do? What did they do? Well, I don't know if Rivera actually played the major role in this because it was all at the same time. I don't know. But anyway, at the same time, the team brought in Cam Newton the Heisman Trophy winning Cam Newton, the brand, the high-profile player from Auburn, is the number one pick in the draft. In 2011 they brought in Cam Newton. And then, of course, you got to keep expectations low. You want to have a positive attitude, but they started out 2-6. And, well, Newton got Offensive Rookie of the Year. Offensive Rookie of the Year. Okay. The team went 6-10, but he had the record for most rushing touchdowns from a QB in a single season. And you say, well, okay, but what about the passing? What about his throwing? Guys and girls. He's became the first rookie quarterback in NFL history to throw for over 4,000 yards in a single year. Wait a minute. What about his rushing? I mean, you said he said he had the most rushing touchdowns. What about the overall rushing? Yeah, he was the first rookie quarterback to rush for more than 500 yards in a single year. So, oh, you're like, oh, yeah, he could run and throw. The guy was amazing. Golly, think about that. But again, next year, 2012, they lost 5 of the first 6 games despite all that excitement. And what happens then? Well, you start firing people. Marty Herney, the general manager, got fired. But then they won a bunch of games at the end. They got a 7-9 overall. See, that's weird. They don't stay down. It's a very interesting team. So then the next year, like I said, 12-4. They won their 3rd NFC South title, right? They lost the 49ers, but nonetheless. And the next year, let's see, they had a 7-game winless streak. Ouch. God, they're up, they're down, but still, at least they go up. They defeated their Cardinals 27-16 in the wild card to go to the playoffs, where they ultimately lost to Seattle 31-17. And then in 2015, they finished the season with 15 wins and 1 loss, which tied, okay, in league history, the best regular season record, which tied for the best regular season record in NFC history. NFC. So then they go to the NFC South Championship, of course. In the 2015-16 playoffs, they beat the Seahawks 31-24 in the NFC Divisional. In the first half, they were ahead 31-0. Then they beat the Cardinals in the NFC Championship 49-15. Went to the Super Bowl, first appearance in the Super Bowl from 2003. But still, that's the second Super Bowl appearance. Now, keep in mind, this team is not that old. They were started in 95. Now, they went to the Super Bowl in 2003, and then again in, what am I saying, in 2008? Is that what we're saying? But then they lost to the Denver Broncos 24-10. Sorry, not 2008, sorry. Yeah, Super Bowl 50, which was their first Super Bowl appearance since 2003. So I messed that up. But yeah, they lost. Okay, they lost to the Broncos 24-10. Damn Broncos. Remember when the Broncos were rocking and rolling? Remember when they were just a threat? Those days are over, but they'll come back. Yeah, so there you go. And then next year, 2016, there we go again. From 15-1, they went to 6-10. Last place in the NFC South. What is that? What is that with Super Bowl teams that go to the Super Bowl the next year they just suck? What is that? Yeah. In the next year, 2017, they were 11-5, but lost to the New Orleans Saints in the wild card. First loss in that round in their history. What is that? Remember, didn't the Bengals win the Super Bowl and then they sucked after that? And then the Philadelphia, didn't they suck when they won the Super Bowl? Yeah, I think they did. Fly Eagle Fly, Philadelphia Eagles. Didn't they suck after they won the Super Bowl? Well, what's going on with that? What is the graph on that? What's the history on that? Is there a source that tells you how well Super Bowl teams have done the year after they've won the Super Bowl, and then what's the average? Do they always suck? Let me see. The Panthers were sold to David Tepper, who used to be a part owner of the Steelers. $2.3 billion. That's why I say when you go to the bank machine, you better get you a couple suitcases full of money if you're going to buy them. That took place May of 2018. And the sale closed in the middle of July in 2018. So then that season, they started pretty good, but it finished 7-9. And the next year, lost the last 8 games to garner a 5-11 record. So then the new owner, Tepper, fired Ron Rivera, who had been the coach for a while. And then the interim coach didn't do very good either. He went 0-4. So then they hired Matt Rule from Baylor to become the head coach. And blah, blah, blah. Yeah, shim ding dong. So there you go. I mean, I'm really impressed with this team. I know you may not be, but I've always liked them, and I think they're going to come back. They just have that in their DNA, that eventually they're going to come back. And also, I just think mid-market teams have more of a struggle. I don't know specifically, but it just feels that way, that cities and teams in mid-market cities just seem like they can't keep it together. Again, no empirical data on this. It just feels that way just because it's the resources aren't as deep sometimes in those markets. But nonetheless, the Panthers have a history of coming back and doing well. It's not like they go down and stay down. And that's an important part of their DNA, an important part of their history, because it says that they're always going to be a threat. Shamalama ding dong, bing a ding a dong. That's pretty much it, guys. That is the Panthers. There's more, but we could be here for all day. We're going to do a separate video on the Hornets, and partly because to keep the videos a little bit more compact, but also because the Charlottes have their own kind of sordid history. The Hornets have their own unique path through their life. So we're going to investigate that in another video. Come on back, and we'll see you then.